Speaking of somebody who's been right about a lot of stuff, David Icke, former head of the Green Party in England, in the UK, also champion goalie, BBC TV host, sports host, but regular TV talk show host, David Icke, and he's a best-selling author as well. DavidIcke.com is his website. He's got a big Wembley arena event, October 27th. We'll definitely have him back on before that happens. Big deal to get people that are awake together in the face of all the propaganda at the center of the global empire that is Albion Britannia. And we've got him on about a host of issues. But coming up, the Eurozone is being collapsed into a super Europe. We've got TSA now yelling freeze at people and groping them on top of that. We've got preparations for martial law and collapse taking place. Everything is going into hyper crazy drive right now, and Al-Qaeda is being activated. Hillary is in the news saying Al-Qaeda killed the ambassador. Yeah, we said that weeks ago. Al-Qaeda, our criminal government, put in charge in Libya and now in Syria. And in Egypt. Someone asked David Icke, David said, hey, what do you want to talk to me about? I'm always, David, whatever you want to talk about. It's always interesting. But let me throw out a few things up front and find out what's most on his radar. David, the global meltdown that's happening, you predicted it decades ago. Now here we are. But it's so brazen. We've now got neocon operatives on C-SPAN saying we need staged terror attacks to blame on Iran on television. I mean, we're now entering a zone where you're either totally awake or awakening, or the globalists are operating out in front of everyone. What's happening in the mass psychosis that the general public's under? Why are things becoming so overt? I mean, the quickening is now quickening is now quickening. What's the time frame, David Icke?
Hello, Alex. Well, I've been saying for years that a time was coming, and my goodness, we're there, when what has remained hidden through literally the centuries and the decades will have to break the surface. And it has to break the surface at some point, because if you are covertly manipulating to bring about a transformation of society into this, I was going to say Orwellian, but it's Orwellian and then some, global fascist dictatorship, then there has to come a point where you break the surface and start to manifest what you've been covertly preparing for all this time. So suddenly, so many things that were hidden suddenly become in your face. Why? Because they're bringing it in. For instance, if you want to pack people into high-rise, incredibly dense places of living, then there comes a point, Alex, where you have to build the things. And then, no, it's not just a theory, they're doing it. And this is in so many areas of the world and life now is what is happening. This is why we're being hit quite demonstrably from all angles, financially, in terms of war after war and preparation for more war, in the stuff in the food, the genetically modified food, that not only is designed to genetically modify us, Alex, it is in the process of doing for anyone who eats the stuff. And all this stuff that's unfolding now is all these different elements that we've been talking about in this tapestry of covert manipulative control that are breaking the surface pretty much at the same time as they impose themselves in, if you like, bricks and mortar as changes in society. And that's why we're seeing it all now. And in Europe here, anybody who, is skeptical that what we've been saying all these years is actually part of a coordinated agenda should just listen to what a guy called Jean Monnet said the day after I was born, on 30th of April 1952. Jean Monnet is called the founding father of the European project, what we now call the European Union. And this is what he said in a letter to a friend in 1952. Europe's nations should be guided towards the superstate without their people understanding what is happening. This can be accomplished by successive steps, each disguised as having an economic purpose, but which will eventually and irreversibly lead to federation. And that's what's happening now. We've been talking, all these years about they want the world government, the world central bank, the world currency, the single electronic currency. And the euro was never an end in itself. The euro was introduced to mop up and absorb all those European countries, the mark, the guilder, the lira, all of them didn't quite get the pound, but they got most of them. And so they reduced the number of currencies in Europe dramatically down to virtually one or two others. And they don't want the euro to survive. I'm not saying it will crash tomorrow, but they want it to crash and disappear eventually.
No. Barroso admitted last week, we're imploding it, super federation. They say they aren't even going to allow football teams to have a national association. It will now just be a mascot. Nationalism will not be allowed in any way.
Yeah, but what they're doing with the euro is they're waiting the right time to get rid of that at some point so they can replace it with the next level, the next stepping stone on the totalitarian tiptoe, which is the global currency. And you're right about Barroso. This man, if he could bottle arrogance, he could corner the market, this guy, Jose Barroso. And what he's done in recent days is to come out and say what the outcome they want in terms of the centralization of European power on a level even now not yet seen, and absolute unquestioned loyalty, as he puts it. Absolute loyalty was his phrase, from the so-called nation states to the European Union. This is what Monnet was talking about in 1952, and the stepping stones, what I call the totalitarian tiptoe, have just picked off more and more sovereignty, more and more control of communities and countries until we've reached this point. And as Monnet said all that time ago, they will use economic excuses to bring it about. And here we are. Barroso is saying we must have this centralized bureaucratic dictatorship in Europe because there is a massive problem with the European economy and we must come together to sort it out. What he doesn't mention, of course, is those that are saying we must sort it out by taking away sovereignty and freedom of the very people that caused the crisis in the first place.
And now Europe, France is saying you can't say mother and father. That was in the news yesterday because that's hateful. In England, most of the new families have to have cameras in the house when they first have a child because you're guilty until proven slave. I mean, this is classic authoritarianism racing. And as you said, they lined it all up, and now they're launching it all, trying to overwhelm us. How are things going for them?
Well, how are things going for them? I mean, at the moment, they seem to be going pretty well. But you see, what you see in the mainstream media is what they are doing. What you don't see, of course, in the mainstream media is the fact that more and more people are becoming alerted to it and wise to it. This is one of the reasons thousands of people are going to be at Wembley in London next month. But, you know, for those that are still saying, oh, no, they never do that when they're actually doing it, there's a guy, Alex, I quote in the last couple of my books. He's a man called Dr. Richard Day. And he was an executive of Planned Parenthood, you know, came out of the eugenics movement, and he was a big Rockefeller family insider. And he stood up in 1969 to address a group of pediatricians in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he asked them to put down their pens and stop any recording equipment. I don't know why he did this. I'm glad he did, though, you know, given the information he's...
No, this has ended up in the congressional record, by the way. This is... yeah.
And he said, I'm going to tell you how the world's going to change. Now, remember, I'll reel these off quick, and this is not all of them. This is in 1969. He told these pediatricians, one of them did take notes and did some interviews about what he said later. Richard Day said, technology will be used for reproduction without sex, families to diminish in importance, euthanasia and the demise pill, limiting access to affordable medical care makes eliminating the elderly easier. New, difficult to diagnose and untreatable diseases, suppressing cancer cures as a means of population control, education as a tool for accelerating the onset of puberty and evolution, restructuring education as a tool of indoctrination, more time in schools, but pupils wouldn't learn anything, controlling who has access to information, schools as the hub of the community, changing laws to promote moral and social chaos, the encouragement of drug abuse to create a jungle atmosphere in cities and towns, promote alcohol abuse, restrictions on travel, the need for more jails, no more psychological or physical security, crime used to manage society, curtailment of U.S. industrial preeminence, that's not happened, has it? Shifting populations and economies, tearing out the social roots, sports as a tool of social engineering and change, sex and violence inculcated through entertainment, implanted ID cards, microchips in other words, food control, weather control, knowing how people respond, making them do what you want, falsified scientific research, see human cause global warming, use of terrorism, this 1969, ladies and gentlemen, use of terrorism, surveillance, implants, and televisions that watch you, the arrival of the totalitarian global system.
And this has been out for decades, and what's amazing is we went down to the UT professor last week who heads up Agenda 21 program, and he said, quote, "The family is a tyranny," that's a quote, to our cameras, and now they're doing it all, and now people are going into puberty, girls at 6, 7, 8 when it was 13, boys are being feminized, they add chemicals to everything. The White House science czar has written 4 books admitting it. They now admit the chemtrailing. It's all happening. We're in it. We're in it, David.
Yeah, and here's the Frankfurt School of Social Engineering, which came out of the Frankfurt fiefdom of the Rothschilds back in the 30s, I think it was. This was their wish list. The creation of racism offenses, continual change to create confusion, brackets see Obama, the teaching of sex to children, huge immigration to destroy national identity, the promotion of excessive drinking. Look at the cross-references here. Emptying of churches, which is undermining...
Look at what's on television. It's all there to destroy you. Look at the messages.
But here we go, encouraging the breakdown of the family, control and dumbing down of the media, dependency on state or state benefits, and then, of course, pulling them out once people are dependent. Legal system with bias against victims of crime. The documents and the writings that are there from way back predicting what we're seeing now are not a few, to say the least, and it's happening. And people need to get out of that river in Egypt. They need to get out of denial very, very quickly, because your children are being poisoned, you're being poisoned. Your children are being indoctrinated and programmed and turned into software programs at school. You're being poisoned in the air. You've been poisoned from the sky, poisoned in your food, poisoned in your water, poisoned by vaccines. I mean, how bad does it have to get before people in vast, vast numbers realize that the world ain't like they thought it was? Because if they don't realize soon, then we are up the Swanee in need, very much need of a paddle.
Well, David, that's my next question for you. And you know, I said bring up whatever point you want, and you're exactly on target with what I've been covering all week. It's all there. They admit they've got nanotech vaccines. This is in the news that make you never get upset again. It actually eats areas of your brain where you literally become a biological android. But they just present it like it's no big deal. It's beyond shock therapy. We know that's already going on. They're putting vaccines engineered into the foods. They're forcibly inoculating all over the world now, including the U.S. It's totally illegal. They're just doing it. They're giving abortions to 10-year-olds without parental consent, morning after pills. Government is absolutely going hog wild, and the minions enforcing it are so stupid they can hardly talk. And so where do you see this diverging? Because some of us are spiritually, physically immune or resistant. Others are wide open to it and have been pre-programmed to giggle when they're warned of what's happening with a hypnotic program, which the globalists then brag about. So it's literally the general public have been turned into basically zombies. And so you've got the controllers who are awake and know what they're doing, but they're compartmentalized themselves, as you've explained, in separation consciousness. I mean, they're androids, but just at a higher control level. Then you've got the suboid drones, and then you've got those of us hyper-awakening and accelerating. What is going to happen? How are they going to deal with free will? Because everything I see shows they're gearing up to directly assault our free will, David.
Well, they are, and, you know, I think you did a video this week, didn't you, about talking about the need for people to be strong. And, you know, as what I've talked about on your show a number of times, that, you know, no one said this was going to be easy. You know, the unfortunate equation was this, as I found, having been on this road now for nearly a quarter of a century, that it had to get to a certain point before people had it in their face enough to start facing reality. Because why it's some esoteric out there sometime over the rainbow, it will never happen kind of perception. No one's ever going to do anything. And, you know, the manipulators depend on that. And what they're doing all the time, and this is why not sitting back and accepting it is so vital, is they push the gate. What by that I mean they up the ante. Say the TSA. First of all, they do one thing, and then they move into full body scanners. Then they're having, you know, freeze demands, and then they're sticking their stuff in your drink after you've been through security. This is the what I call, as I said earlier, the totalitarian tiptoe, and at every point they are looking for resistance. What's the resistance to this? And if
they're wargaming, they're testing, they're probing.
If it's not there, then they'll just push the gate even further, and we'll go on to something else. So, ladies and gentlemen, they want this totalitarian society. And when I say fully in place, I mean in fine detail by something like 2050, 2060. And I'm talking fine detail by then. Now, look at what it's like in 2012 and imagine what it will be like by the time we reach the mid part of this century.
Most people will already be dead from the soft kill weapons they put in the food and water.
Yeah, and if that doesn't concentrate your minds for yourselves, then look at your children and your grandchildren and see if that'll concentrate.
They're all dead. Most of them have already been implanted with chemicals and things that are going to soft kill them down the road. But if we overthrew these people, then the high-tech systems that have been developed and also, you know, natural systems could repair a lot of the damage, and we could have access to all that advanced technology and all the things that humanity could be. Instead, we're being shut off from the breakaway civilization, but the breakaway civilization is run by a bunch of demonic creatures.
Yeah, and you're literally right with that, actually, funnily enough. But what I'm saying here is that there are 7 billion of us. There is a relative, certainly comparative to that, a handful of people in full knowledge of what they're doing. And they're dividing and ruling the target population, and they're recruiting from the target population for their TSAs and their uniforms and their dark suit administrators. And what they've done is create things like religions and political beliefs and cultural beliefs and income bracket and class beliefs, and all these things are fault lines to divide and rule the target population. So we are going to have Jewish people who are going to be victims of what we're talking about, big time, like everyone else. We have Arab people who are going to be the same. We have middle-class Americans and Europeans who are going to be the same. We have Hindus, we have atheists, we have South Americans, we have black South Africans. They're all going to be subject to this. In fact, it's unfolding now. If we came together and put the fault lines of divide and rule aside and realize that, you know, people talk about Israel and all that stuff, and so do I, big time, because we need to. Because the House of Rothschild controls Israel, the House of Rothschild controls the United States, it controls the European Union, and thus they work as one unit. But Israelis are going on the streets in the last year or so, in hundreds of thousands in numbers, protesting at their economic plight, the same as people in the rest of the world, to such an extent that at least 2 of them have set fire to themselves in protest.
Alex Jones here with a message to fellow freedom lovers. The prognosis for the entire planetary economic system runs from bad to worse. The globalist model is to shut down societies and starve patriots out until they acquiesce to the global takeover. That's why we've assembled the most vital and important preparedness items at InfoWarsShop.com. These are items that I did research on, that I personally use. We've got the life straw, so you can turn fetid water into safe water anywhere you go. The K-Tor hand crank generator to charge up key equipment during power outages or out in the field. Strategic Relocation, 3rd edition by Joel Skousen. When Disaster Strikes by Matthew Stein. ThyroSafe, used by Homeland Security to protect yourself during any radiological event. Hand crank shortwave AM/FM radios. Everything that we've researched and found to be the best is available at InfoWarsShop.com, and your purchase makes our InfoWar possible. We're getting prepared. Are you? InfoWarsShop.com. My friends, the globalists study humans like they're another species and we're animals. They all write this in their eugenics books. And they want to create an artificial environment, an artificial habitat for us to control us. And everything you read in Brave New World, written in 1932 by Aldous Huxley, his brother Julian Huxley headed up the UN UNESCO program. He was the top eugenicist in the world. Huxley, before he died in '62, the speech is online at Berkeley, gave a speech and said, I'm admitting this is real. We're going to do this to you, and you won't be able to stop us. If you want, you can join us. And the PhD students, people in there getting their PhDs, they joined them. And again, ladies and gentlemen, my dad was in the top 6 smartest in Texas in a bunch of extensive studying, and a junior in high school was called aside and basically told all this stuff. And he never even told me that story till my mother was watching Endgame. She said, this isn't real. You know, this is too horrible. My dad said, no, actually, it's all true. So, and again, my dad's smart, but I mean, this happened to thousands of young people that year in his generation. And most of them go, okay, I'll be part of the elite. So it's at that academic level that they're clued into this more than anywhere else. I'll get David's take on that in a moment and how we resist this. And we also have a bunch of callers out on the phone last hour. Some are left who disagree. We'll see if David wants to take a few of those, but I know he's got what he wants to talk about. I want to invite him back in October, right before the event, maybe the 18th or 19th, when we do that 48-hour broadcast. We're going to do the 18th and 19th, maybe to do 2 hours with us, because this guy can really break stuff down. Maybe even let him host the show or something a few hours. I could bow out during the 48-hour broadcast. The only way I'll shut up is I find him so thought-provoking, davidicke.com. But if you want to understand what's happening and support the free speech of what we're doing, because we're selling these at cost, you can get the new InfoWars magazine, the 2nd installment. You can subscribe and get the next 12 issues plus the first inaugural issue on designed economic collapse, and the new October issue at InfoWarsStore.com at cost. We have the subscriptions at cost, $59.95. That includes the shipping, which is cost about half of what that cost us. When you add the crew and the editors, everybody, we're losing money on this because we need the physical copies out there with all the censorship that's coming. We're growing an organic leg in the InfoWar in this fight. It's important to sign up. Friday, we'll send it out free to you, a digital version at Infowars.com/newsletter. Or you can sign up to get 12 issues plus the first issue free when you sign up for a year, $59.95. And you can also buy them in 10 packs, 20 packs, up to 100 packs at cost. Now, I'm going to explain something. We've sold 10,000 of these. I put 50,000 on the streets of Austin as a beta test. I got 50,000. I think we'll probably get 10,000 subscriptions or more the way it's going. So I've got to hold back 10,000. We'll sell out in the next 4 or 5 days at this rate. So if you want to get the hard copies in bulk at cost to hand out to people, this breaks down the technocracy, the end of humanity, rise of the robots, October surprise war, DARPA the real Skynet. This is an emergency transmission. InfoWarsStore.com. Now, going back to David. David, I want to talk big picture with you. I know your latest book breaks this down, and I want to get into some of that with you here. But, David, getting up, and I don't want to cut you off with the break, get back into the Israeli thing you were getting into as well, but I want to get into this with you. The big picture. Why did the social engineers, because they brag this goes back thousands of years, why did they allow the Renaissance? Or was that humanity overpowering them? Because I know they're not in total control. It's a battle. We shouldn't overestimate or underestimate these people. But now they've gotten to this point, they openly say in all their tomes that they want to reduce world population forcibly down to 100 million is generally the number they agree on. So that's a 90+% reduction, as you know. Publicly, they say only kill 80%. That's the more liberal version. What is the master plan if they win? Because I think earlier you hit the nail on the head when you said, hey, they're going to kill your kids. They're poisoning you right now. The DNA's damaged. The sperm's down by 87% in Europe, the U.S. They feminize men, hyper-feminize women. They admit it. They brag about it. And that's only right now. The GMOs sterilizing, murdering, killing the animals they give it to. They're murdering us. Where is all this going? I mean, what is the master plan if these demonic entities, the Christians say that, you say that as well, that are interdimensionally manipulating things? People say that's kooky, but that's what all the religions say. What will they do? What's their end game plan?
Well, just very quickly to finish that point, Alex, before the break, please, people, when you look at yourself, and this will go into answering the question you've just asked, Alex, don't see yourself first and foremost as a Jew or an Arab or an American or a middle class or working class or black or white or sky blue, bloody pink. See yourself, and we're greater than this, but let's just look at this level. See yourself as a human being, a member of humanity that is being targeted en masse, not a bit of humanity, all of us, by this force. And let the fault lines drop. If someone disagrees with you because it's a different religion, well, they have a right to disagree with you, just as you have a right to believe what you believe. Put away color. It's just a body. It's a vehicle to experience this reality. That's all. Okay? Don't get caught in it, because these are all divide and rule so that we're fighting among ourselves and we don't see the strings attached to both sides, apparent sides, and the same hands holding both of them. And in terms of the bigger picture, that fits, Alex, because the Wembley Arena on October the 27th, the event lasts 12 hours. I'm going to be talking for 9.5 of them. And I'm going to be doing that because so many strands, so many dots have to connect before we see this vast, but in its foundation state, very simple situation that we face. And people have laughed at me and ridiculed me over the years, and they still do. Oh, best of luck, about, non-human entities and reptilian entities and all this stuff, because they're hearing it in isolation. He says reptiles are evolved, he's dead. But when you see it all put together, then what appears in isolation to appear to be crazy and off the wall becomes perfectly logical, and more than that, becomes a whoa, I can see it now explanation for what's happening now, what's happened up to this point, and where it's going from here. So, if anyone's, because it's going to be live on the internet, the Wembley event now, and if anyone has a closed mind or a belief system to protect, don't even bother. But if you have an open mind and you want to see the big picture within which our daily experience is a part, not only a part, but from which our daily experience is being projected, then over 9.5 hours, I'll put it together. And in simple terms, mate, there is a force that operates beyond human sight, which is a narrow band called visible light, which is all that we can pull into what we call the world of the conscious mind. And it has a different vibrational state to us. Thus, if you like, it's on a slightly different frequency. This is why we can't see it most of the time unless it enters our frequency. And it needs a different, what we call, atmosphere. And the big picture of this, which I'll be explaining, like I say, at Wembley in great detail, strand on top of strand, up a strand, is that they are seeking to rewire us genetically, and they're doing this through GMO, to change the nature of the human form and to block even more of its infinite, innate potential to express itself and express its own power. This is what transhumanism is about. These entities that operate out of human sight are very robotic. They're very computer-like. They're not conscious in the way that we are conscious. All the ancient writings about them talk about the fact that these entities envy humans. And therefore, for them to dominate humans, they have to suppress human potential as it normally would be, which is what they're doing on all these different ways. This is why they want to control our sense of perception from cradle to grave. And all this stuff where they're messing with the atmosphere, all these sources of radiation, including Fukushima and a nuclear war, well, I rest my case.
And they've now got Monbiot saying more radiation's good for us. And you've got the top, the New York Times saying, we are engineering you. You're going to be 3 feet tall. You'll go into puberty at age 5. You'll be dead at 20. And we're going to hook microchips in your brain. It's for the earth. And I go out and interview people in Austin. They're like, I'm ready to die. I'm ready to live in a prison. Kill me for Earth. I mean, they've already got them. They've already got them.
Yeah, these entities need to change the atmosphere of this planet if they are going to be able to come here. They can come here, but they can't stay for very long. This is why there's endless stories about seeing these entities in various forms, not just reptilian, by the way, and then they disappear. What they've done is entered visible light. Oh, there you are. They've left visible light, and suddenly they've disappeared. But they haven't. They've left the frequency range where humans can actually see them.
Well, look, undoubtedly, David, I'm going to say this. Everyone knows I don't get into extraterrestrial stuff that the elites are obsessed with in movies like Prometheus, where they're throwing it in your face. But the elites believe we were engineered. Anunnaki, it's in the Bible, it's in the Egyptian writings. Every culture says this. I don't go there just because they can say, oh, that's conspiracy stuff, and there's so many disinformation people out there that cover this. But I don't knock people that do. But I will say this. When I study the ancient writings, when I study the elites, when I break into Bohemian Grove, all this, the elites really do believe in this. And so whether it's completely true or not, they believe they're manifesting it. And the people that work for them love blood, love death, love torturing small children to death. And they might as well be reptoids from the 5th dimension. Okay, because all I know is that they might as well be from a different planet here to destroy us, because that's what they're doing anyways. So I can't argue with you because, well, I mean, what's the Bible saying? These evil entities, fallen angels, they want to create a world government and turn us all into these, mindless creatures. Well, that's what's happening. All I know is we're in deep trouble. I've got stacks of textbooks like Ecoscience where they say they're poisoning us, and I got neighbors everywhere dying and little kids dying of cancer everywhere, and it's just funny and it's fun, and we're all dying, ha, 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 and autism's everywhere, ha, 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 and it's totally sick. We are under mind control. So then I say, the only thing that makes sense is that this is anti-human.
Yes, exactly. Alex, if you go into almost any ancient culture, probably any, if you did them all, you'll find these entities described under different names. They're what the pre-Islamic people in Arabia, and Islam has taken it on, call the jinn. It's what the Gnostics 2,000 years ago called the archons, and it's what the Zulus call the Chitahuri. They're all, and it's what the Christians call the demons. These are the same things, and they are anti-human. They are seeking to undermine humanity, and as I was in every way to take away our advantage over them. All in the ancient writings, by the way, which is, to put it in a phrase, creative imagination. Humans have creative imagination.
We're creators. We're made in the image of the creator. And that's what, bottom line, the globalists, the eugenicists, they claim that they're getting rid of the infirm to make a super race, but really they're trying to dumb everybody down. I mean, right there, regardless, the ruling class wants to vandalize the incredible human spirit. They want to screw us up. They want to hack us. They want to jack us.
And this is why they are seeking to undermine the great advantage of awareness and consciousness and creative imagination and creativity that humans have that they don't have, and thus they cannot change our world. They do not have the creative imagination.
So you're saying we have extraterrestrial parasites attached to the planet?
Well, they're parasites, but they're not. I wouldn't call them extraterrestrial. I'd say they're interdimensional. It's a very different thing. I don't see them in spaceships and all that stuff. But the point being is that they cannot, through lack of this creative imagination, take our planet over and change our world. What they have to do is manipulate us with that creative imagination to do it for them.
Exactly. They use us as their...
This is what they're doing. We are building our own prison by having our perceptions manipulated. And as I was going on to say, this humanism stuff, putting bits of kit and technology into the human form, oh, it's great, yeah, it's Schwarzenegger and all that stuff. It's not to advance humanity. It is to further erode our advantage over them by turning us into robots. This is what all the mind control is about, and all the technology to suppress us and turn us into software programs. Because
no, exactly. The globalists design all technology with back doors to hurt us. They don't give us anything unless it hurts us, and then we think it has one use. It really has another.
We are getting those humanity that succumb to this. They are being, if you like, back-engineered in terms of going backwards rather than forwards and evolving to a greater state of awareness. They're going backwards, closer and closer to these entities. And the closer you get to these entities in terms of lack of potential, the more these entities have control over you. And this is what we're seeing, Alex. We're seeing this fork in the road. I mean, it's so blatant. There are people, more and more people, hallelujah, brother and sister, that are waking up and are therefore moving by expanding their awareness. They're moving away from the influence of these entities. They're the people waking up, and then there's others that are getting pulled more and more closer and closer to them, and therefore being vastly more influenced. And this is why you're seeing this fork in the road, where you've got people awakening to a sense of self and the world that they've never had before in terms of its expansion and the way they look at it, and others are getting pulled more and more and more and more and more into being nothing more than software programs. Press enter, and you know how they're going to react. So
no, I mean, the globalists admit they want us to be biological machines if they even allow us to live. That's in all their major scientific papers that we cover in the new issue of the magazine. What's crazy is it's not debated, but let's look at it from an admitted anthropology view. Psychopaths, maybe 1 out of 200 people on average, they can artificially, create more sociopaths as kind of a servant class. They aren't really what we'd call human. So regardless, we have a guild of psychopaths building the world in their image, which is ugliness and pain and suffering and death. And then you're
Alex, very quickly. You've used the word there, mate. A world of ugliness. The world that we're seeing unfold is the world of these entities who have no creative imagination. It is not a world, this one that's coming in now, whether it's architecture, whether it's destruction of the natural world. It's not beauty. It's not creative. It is ugly, and it's ugly because it's being done by representatives of people with entities with no creative imagination.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
David is going to be on with us when I do the 18th and 19th, 48-hour broadcast. I'll be off and on here for 48 hours with other hosts and guests. He'll be on with us for 2 hours. I only pretty much host the show. I'll be so exhausted after being on for 24 hours pretty much. So look forward to that as well. He's got his Wimberley event. Find out more. It's historic at davidicke.com. You should be there. If you live in Europe or England especially. I know a lot of folks from the U.S. are traveling there. A very important historical event, because awakening and having an open mind is the beginning of the end for the technocrats who think they're God, and in all their own writings, and the BBC, you name it, say, we're another species. Just look up, elite believe they're another species. You'll get hundreds of articles where they're saying it. So regardless, they think all this stuff. They're a bunch of loons. And I'm here resisting them. David, what is the point of having neocons get on C-SPAN? I don't know if you've seen this video. 2 days ago, we broke it on the web yesterday, and saying, hey, we need to stage terror attacks to blame it on Iran. Why would they publicly say it on television, knowing that those of us that expose false flag terror would then say, see, we told you so? I mean, what is the point of that? Or is that just, and they all giggle and smirk? I mean, I guess these people want to see what they can get away with. We know that's part of the criminology, basically. But what do you make of that? Well,
there's also extreme levels of arrogance. Ignorance and arrogance always seems to go together. They think they're so intelligent and so knowing, but actually they're dead ignorant. They just control human society by suppressing the target population.
They're willing to break the rules. They're willing to do horrible things. I mean,
yeah. If the target population, humanity, was in its true power and its in true state, I mean, they'd be little boys in short trousers. I mean, they wouldn't even be flies on an elephant's back. They get their power by suppressing human innate power and innate intelligence. But so when you look at Dr. Richard Day in 1969, he told those doctors, "Oh, it's all in place. It's nothing can stop it now." 1969. So by now they are really confident that they're going to be able to do this. But they are not intelligent. They are clever, but they're not wise, and wisdom is a much greater level of intelligence than cleverness. And cleverness without wisdom is not only the most destructive force on earth, it's also one that has a finite life. If true innate intelligence comes and looks it in the face.
What about the compartmentalized bootlickers? I run into people that know it's a tyranny, but they get this weird little demonic smile and think they're winning because they joined this. And if they had any knowledge or wisdom, they would understand they're under the black wings of pure death. And they're a joke.
They are a joke. I mean, it's like someone wants to support a football team. So they don't support the football team that's, local to them down the street, which isn't doing very well. They'll think, who's winning? So, and then they'll go and support the team that's winning, the big clubs. And it's the same, really. It's like it's reflected power. This is why I say to these TSA people and others in uniform that strut around, again, this reflected power. They have no power. They're just
well, it's embarrassing for them. Those of us that have attained real power know that it's a great honor and a great responsibility, but also embarrassing. I mean, I know you feel embarrassed when you exercise power, even for good. I mean, I would imagine. I know I do. Why do we feel embarrassed by exercising even righteous power, but they feel good exercising bad power?
Well, the point is that people who have no power of their own because they're asleep, they don't have to be, they've chosen to be, then they look for reflected power. So if you have no power in your life, well, join the TSA, and suddenly you're telling people to freeze and go through full body scanners. And this is the reflected power we're talking about.
Alex Jones here with a message that could revolutionize health in this country. Going back about a year and a half ago, I began to learn about the incredible health effects of longevity products. Aaron Dykes lost 92 pounds. We're going to show you some before and afters. Aaron, break down what happened, your story.
I've worked really hard with diet and exercise to try to lose weight, but I just didn't get the results. It just didn't happen. Then I saw what you were doing with InfoWarsTeam.com. I wasn't even trying to lose weight, but I got it because I wanted to feel better energy. I wanted that nutrition. Didn't even understand how that could kickstart my own weight loss goals, but the products did that for me. I found myself suddenly losing weight, more energetic, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat the right foods.
And they don't even advertise it as weight loss. I want to challenge our radio listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com, sign up as a distributor, and get wholesale pricing discounts at InfoWarsTeam.com. It's hard to say bye to David Icke, a very riveting person. I just resonate with with what he has to say, and I hope people will attend his Wimberley event. I wish I could go, and I'll be watching some of it online as much as I can. He'll be back with us on the 19th for 2 hours. We'll let him basically host the show. And we're almost out of time. I'm going to come back to people that have been holding patiently who disagree and then get to some other news. But, David, you were interrupted by the break. We got 4.5 minutes left. You have the floor.
Yeah, I was just saying that if you say to these people at the TSA and others like them in the system who have no personal power, but have sought to cover that with reflected power from the state, take your uniform off, get another job. Where's your power? The power's not in them, although they strut around arrogantly, covering up their own insecurity. Arrogance always covers up insecurity. And it's this insecurity in these people that makes them react over the top when anyone challenges them. This is what narcissistic personalities do. One of the traits of narcissistic personalities is low emotional esteem. And therefore, when you're a policeman or a cop and someone says, well, just show me the law that you're arresting me on, they pull the bloody taser out because you are pricking their lack of emotional security by challenging them. They want to feel they're all powerful to cover that up. And so when you are recruiting people, then you make sure that in the job application forms or the interviews, you ask questions that are based on a science called psychometric testing. And by their answers, they are giving you their personality type.
And by the way, that's admitted. They're now going, not in the past, they went for smart, tough guys for cops in free countries. Now they're going for Stasi, control freak, low-grade morons who like to beat people. They're going for sadist.
Exactly. I've been saying this for a few years because I saw, as anyone with a brain on active duty would have seen, that there are still some genuine police officers out there and people in law enforcement, but there was demonstrably a personality change collectively in law enforcement over the last 20 years or so. And I thought, how have they done it? Because I can see they have. And it's this recruiting policy, not least helped by this psychometric testing. I know people who've had it. It's very accurate, where they do not recruit these people by ability to do the job in the way it should be done in a civilized country. They recruit overwhelmingly by personality type, and so therefore they have filled law enforcement. They've done this with the dark suit administrators in government and state government and local government as well. They've filled them with these narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, and this is why the dynamic between the public and law enforcement and government has fundamentally shifted at every level, so that there's no service to the public. There's some with the old school still left, just hanging on, but there's no real service to the public. The public are there to be controlled by law enforcement, not served by law enforcement, and not served by government. This has all been systematically done, and it's all a mind game. They've just picked the right people and put them in uniform, and what happens is they just express their personality type once the uniform's on. They don't really have to be guided, because you put a psychopath, narcissist, sociopath in a position of reflected power with a uniform, they're going to act in line with their personality, and that's why we see so many of them.
You're right. Very well said. DavidIcke.com. I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com, and I want to thank everybody for watching and listening to this interview. David, I know you're a busy guy, but we got you locked in for the 19th of October, my friend.
Okay, mate. Just to say, if I can, that the Wembley streaming, anyone with an internet connection will be able to watch the whole thing and watch it as many times as they like for a month after it happens. And it really will put the pieces together so the bizarre doesn't look quite so bizarre.
And they can find out at DavidIcke.com?
Yep, it'll be available, the details, early next week.
Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.